Unit 1.2 Types of Business. Sole trader, partnership, private and public, company and corporation. The distinction between both types of enterprise is that private limited only will sell private shares in the business to those investors they are familiar with, such as relatives, the family, and associates. A private limited partnership restricts the available funding but maintains more power over the firm. If the corporation chooses to become a public limited company, it must sell its stock to the public. Public access opens the chance to secure vast amounts of money. The key characteristics of profit-based, commercial organizations. Sole proprietorship. Partnerships. Companies. Not-for-profit enterprises. The main characteristic of all these kinds of businesses is that profit maximization is one of their main goals. Profits is equals to total revenues minus total cost. Sole traders. Most startups normally start with a small capital and a basic structure. Faced with certain restrictions, they choose to be the sole trader, sometimes referred to as the sole proprietor, the easiest mode of business to organize and manage. Becoming a trader is the only way one can do several things. Be your own director who watches a demand shortage and wants to react faster, create their own unique items and goods, serve the community or simply live their own dreams. Key characteristics of sole trader business. The key characteristics of sole trader business are: A. They own and operates the business. B. There is no ethical difference between the company and the owner. C. The financial is usually restricted and small. D. However, the business is close to the consumer. E. The owner of the business has confidentiality and strict accountability. F. It is fairly straightforward, cheap and fast to register the company. The benefits of becoming a sole trader. The sole trader has all earnings from the venture, since the owner is not separated from the firm by any legitimate difference. A few other benefits of sole trading include: A. Have a complete influence in all crucial decision-making for the businesses. B. Regarding operating time, choosing goods and facilities, as well as any changes in the operation, the sole proprietorship have complete freedom. C. As sole proprietorship, the details normally does not need to be disclosed. D. The legal requirement for sole proprietorship are minimal. E. Close links to the consumer, who could provide a strategic advantage to the businesses. Disadvantages of being a sole trader. Some of the disadvantages for sole proprietorships are: A. It will be challenging to compete against existing companies by yourself. B. Pressure and possible ineffectiveness can occur when the sole trader handles all of the decision, often with only little time to ask others for guidance. C. In the case of a major injury and death of the owner, there is a shortage of stability since the company cannot continue itself. D. The founder invests all his resources running the company and may have limited space for extension. E. In particular, the funding is small, which can also impose a pressure on the company. More attention will be on getting enough money or daily activities rather thinking forward. F. On any defects, liabilities or errors incurred, the owner is unrestrictedly liable. Partnership is an alternative form of a business. Partnership can be formed when there is two or more people. They can be friends, partners, associates, or an individual with common abilities. Professional individuals such as physicians, lawyers, accountants, or even consulting companies are very common with partnerships. Partnerships' key characteristics. The partners make the decisions together. More than one individual owns and manages the company. Between the company and associates there is no legal difference. Fund is generally more accessible than a single merchant company. In partnership form there might be sleeping partners. There would have more diverse in operation for partnerships compared to sole trader. The transparency of partnerships is usually higher than that of a single dealer. Usually, partnerships are more sustainable than sole traders and are more likely to continue. The profits will not to be divided equally by partners. Advantages of partnerships. A. As partners frequently possess diverse qualifications and abilities, partnerships sometimes achieve productive work by specializing in and dividing the workforce. B. In addition, partners provide a company with more experience than one individual would. C. As partnerships they typically have more exposure in financing since they have lower incidence but higher stability. D. Partners may assist in crises, illness or are on vacation. E. Partnerships are most likely to continue and if a partner dies the company does not immediately come to an end. Disadvantages of partnership. Each partner has unconditional obligation, which implies that each party has a legal responsibility for all the liability of any other partner's businesses or acts. Partnerships tend to have fewer access to loans from banks and financial institutions compared to businesses operating as corporations. Restricted funding may also stop a company from growing or improving profit-making opportunities. A partner does not have full ownership of the company and must rely on other partners' work and goodwill. Benefits between the partners must be balanced. Partners will dispute, which may threaten partnerships in some of the worst scenario. In short, partnerships are better than traders themselves, but they are also more complicated. Since several partners usually collect more capital than individual traders and because of their high perceived resilience, partnerships are more likely to survive changing market trends and are more likely to extend under the right conditions. Partners will dispute, which may threaten partnerships in some of the worst scenario. For-profit companies. The organization, corporations in North America, is perhaps the most important form of industry, and you can distinguish a corporation by the accompanying abbreviations according to its logos. Incorporated, Incorporated, USA, Canada. LLC, Limited Liability Company, United States. PLC, Private or Public Limited Company, UK. PTE, Private Limited Company, UK. Limited, Limited Company, various. SA, Sociedad Anónima, Latin America except Brazil and Mexico. SA, Sociedades Anónimas, Brazil, Portugal. SPA, Società Presioni, Italy. AB, Aktbolag, Finland, Sweden. PhD, Berhad, Malaysia, Brunei. GI, Groupement d'Intérêt Économique, France. GmbH, Gesellschaft mit beschränkter Haftung, Austria, Germany, Switzerland. Shareholders are rewarded for investing in a company in three ways. A. If the company performs well, the prices of the stocks it holds will rise in value. The valuation of a business is dependent on its earnings in principle, although not necessarily accurate in reality. The net value of its shares could also rise when earnings increase. Furthermore, the corporation could raise its price at the same rate in individual equity shares. B. Also as dividends, the corporation releases a part of its income. Any investor earns revenues according to the number of stocks owned by each investor. Dividends are either not charged or very minimal for micro or small corporations. Dividend payments are often paid periodically, once in every 3 months or every 4 months. C. The investor has no obligation, which is also one of a corporation's core characteristics and advantages. In no way is the business member is liable for the debts of the organization, different from the single owner or members in a partnership. If the firm loses, so the investment in the organization will all be lost to all its owner. Cost to the shareholders for investing in a company. A. If the business does not operate well, the price of the shares it holds will fall. In concept, the worth of a business is dependent on its benefits, as stated in paragraph 1 above. If the revenue drops, the valuation of individual shares, typically, also decreases. B. If the corporation has no option, it might choose not to issue dividends. For various causes, companies need capital. Companies who may not do well and did not acquire adequate cash may not be able to pay dividends. Corporations that expand significantly will require more resources to promote the corporation's development. Therefore, most businesses occasionally pay dividends or maybe never. The whole value measurement is dependent on the increase or decline of the inventory value. C. Since members frequently have only a portion of the business's equity, holding stock in a company does not guarantee that an individual shareholder has any real role in business operations. At the end of 2012, 10,405,625,000 issued and outstanding shares were issued by General Electric Corporations, GE, of the United States. In a giant business like GE, a single person who owns 100 shares will virtually have no voice. Even 1% of the company will entail an investment of around $2.5 billion, and so 1% say who the managers are. Normally, corporations simply select to be a corporation in the first place, because corporate owners wish the organization to have a distinct legal identity personal to them and thus grant the owners as shareholders limited liability. Other factors to become a corporation are also offered. It's acknowledgement to the company's performance that increases the position of the company. Stocks are a great source of funds for corporations, particularly to growing requirements for working capital. The fact that a corporation has an independent legal presence from its owners strengthens the stable nature of the corporation. When an owner or shareholder dies, the company will continue. For smaller firms, the deaths of a main shareholder may trigger a certain disturbance if this individual is also an involved director of the company. The corporations, however, continues. Companies are generally more likely to receive more funds from financial institutions and governments, particularly loans. Company key characteristics. A. They own the corporation but do not control the company. B. The corporation and its shareholders are separated. C. More funding is usually accessible. D. The corporations is kept a high level of accountability. E. The corporations have more stability and a more continuous chance. F. Every details are legally recorded. The benefits of company. There are advantages in being a company. They are: A. Financial access is better than for individual traders and partnerships. B. There is no liability for the investor. C. Continuity exists. D. There is an established structure of company. Weaknesses for profit companies. There are disadvantages in being a company. They are: A. It will take time and a lot of resources to start a business in order to fulfill the legal obligations required. B. Selling shares, if the business decide to go public. Types of business. C. Founder risks losing ownership of the enterprise either partially or entirely. D. Confidentiality is being compromised. E. An organization has no capital price regulation. F. There is minimal discretion of a corporation about who purchases its stocks. State-owned enterprises, public sector. State-owned enterprises, SOE, are large organizations that are created by a country's government to carry out commercial activities. The business enterprise may be owned in full or in part by the state. All profits made are paid to the state government. Examples of SOEs are Fannie Mae, U.S., DBS Bank, Singapore. SOEs are very important to a country and are often in the sectors such as electricity, energy, water, banking, etc. Cooperative. Cooperative societies are independent associations of workers united voluntarily to meet their joint economic needs through a jointly owned enterprise which is run on democratic principles. In a cooperative, the need for profit is balanced against the needs of the members and the wider interests of the community. Cooperatives play a very important role, as they are organizations for the poor, illiterate and unskilled people like farmers. In farm cooperatives, the cooperative will help farmers to sell their crops at higher prices than if they were to sell it by themselves. A joint venture is where a separate business entity is created by two or more parties. It involves sharing ownership, returns and risks of the new project or other business activity for which the joint venture was initially set up. A joint venture is set up so both parties can see advantages. This agreement may be for a specific project where the duties are divided as well as the revenues, cost and profits based on an agreement. This is a good way to run a business, as sometimes a project may be too big for just one organization to undertake. Also, some organization may lack the expertise to undertake a section of a project and as such form up with another company to provide the service. Practice.